Hello, welcome to Con Corner. I'm Tina, and today I'm going to do a video response to the Peaceful Preppers, one of her videos. She has a number of really good ones. This one is called An Urban Bug Out Bag, How to Get Started. And the reason I'm doing a video response to this is that I really want to call attention to her video. She has some really good advice and lots of good checklists for how to look at your own situation and make plans in advance that will meet your particular needs. We lived on the coast for a few years, and right during the time and right after Hurricane Katrina. So we went through lots of evacuations, and we also sheltered in place. Hurricane Claudette came right over our house and did a lot of damage in our area. So we got to see some of these things, and there were some things that we didn't expect. If we just look at other people's situations, we're going to miss things that are important to us. So I really want to encourage you to go and check out the Peaceful Prepper, and her channel is just full of lots of great information. Lots of it's very specific. This particular video is, I'll put a link to it down in the comments. One of the things that I wanted to do is just kind of go through the things that we found that were really the basic bare essentials, and why. Number one is a full tank of gas. You folks that are in the cities, you know, once the news breaks about something, you're not going to be the first person to know that. There's going to be a lot of people that have that early notice too, and are going to be on the move. Where we lived was in a very rural area down on the Texas coast, and so everything kind of just funneled up. Well, there weren't any big cities below us, so you wouldn't expect this large amount of traffic or demand. And yet, but you know, when the notice went out, and there's an early warning telephone system down there where the county calls you and notifies you of evacuations. When the notice went out, all of a sudden, all of the gas stations were full with long lines of people getting gas, and they started running out of fuel very quickly, surprisingly quickly, much more quickly than we anticipated. The other piece of that is that at the time that we sheltered in place, of course, all the power lines went down. Well, with no power, there was no way, you know, to pump fuel from the gas stations. So to power our generators or to operate our cars, we had to use the gas that we had on hand. So now, one of the things that I always make a conscious effort to do is when one of our cars gets to about half a tank, I go ahead and fill it up and try to keep a full tank of gas at all times. It just, that way, if something should happen and we don't have a lot of notice, at least we have enough gas to get pretty far away. The second thing is to carry cash in small bills. We discovered that, you know, number one, with the power out, there was, of course, no way for anybody to process debit cards. And you know, once you get out of your home area, locally people might go ahead and take your check, but once you get out of your home area in an evacuation situation, a lot of people are not going to be willing to do that because there's too much demand for whatever it is you're buying. Where we discovered the essential need for this was with phone lines. After one of our evacuations, the hurricane, was it Hurricane? I can't remember which one it was. It hit the coast of Texas, and it just came up and went all the way through East Texas, and it went literally all the way up to Texarkana and did damage and knocked down trees and knocked out power. And so a lot of businesses did not have power for literally weeks. And so while they might have the thing that you wanted to sell, or they might have a generator that they could open up with, that they weren't necessarily going to have access to run their debit and credit card machine. And the other thing is, nobody's going to make change for your $100 bills, so don't bother carrying big bills. So that's the thing is do carry some cash in small 5s, 10s, 20s on you. The third thing is to just stow a case of bottled drinking water and some snacks. And snacks can be food. A jar of peanut butter and a box of saltines will last you a long time as good survival food, and it's cheap. And it's easy to throw something like that in your car, because one of the other things that we discovered very quickly as we were evacuating is that all of the deliveries are stopped, and so stores are just wiped out. They don't have a lot of things in back stock. So all of their bottled water, their bottled soft drinks, their easy foods in these little convenience stores is gone in a hurry. So those are a couple of things that are really easy to just keep in the car, or to keep ready to grab and throw in the car. So even if it's a short-term bug-out situation, and like this one was, one of the things that happened, and I'll talk more about that in a minute, but we talked to restaurant owners as we got further away from the coast where we were evacuating from, and they were all like, well, we ran out of food after midway through the second day. We simply had to shut down because we had no more food to cook. And so the problem is even if it's a short-term evacuation for a week, there's still going to be problems with food. So if you have your own soft drink, your own drink, and your own snack foods that you can get by on for a few days, it's going to go a long ways toward making you feel better. Plus, you can keep driving. You don't have to stop to get food. The fourth thing that I wanted to suggest is to avoid gadgets. We had a landline when the time that we stayed put during the hurricane, but the hurricane knocked out all of the cell phone towers. Since we had a landline, we could get online because we had a dial-up modem account that we could use, and I had a plug-in phone, an old-fashioned. I have one now. It's a Princess phone that my mother sent me. Does not use electricity. It just has a cord that plugs into the phone jack, and that's what you need, because anything that requires electricity to work in your cordless phones, they're not going to work if your power's down. But our old landlines did work. But the cell towers were down, and they were down for a long time, so there was no cell service. The other piece of that is, even if the towers are up, there are so many calls coming through that it jams all the circuits, so you cannot depend on being able to use your phone or your electronics in those situations. I strongly recommend maps, and not just any maps. The ones that we carry in our car, we have this big road atlas that's Walmart used to sell them, and I think they still do. Not those little bitty ones, because they don't carry much. They just have the main roads. What you want are maps that have all of your state highways, and if possible, your county roads too. And so these big maps, they have all of these different arteries on them, so you can kind of take a closer look at where you're trying to go, and different methods for getting there. The first time that we bugged out, that we evacuated, like I said, we were in this rural area. There weren't that many people. It's not documented well, but for that evacuation, they not only evacuated the Houston area, they evacuated the entire Texas coast, because you may not know this, but they cannot predict where a hurricane is going to go until at least 24 hours before it hits land, and sometimes they don't even know until 12 hours ahead of time. And so there's often this wide swath that may be evacuated. So we didn't anticipate that the traffic surge was going to be what it was, and yet it was huge because of, everybody's trying to bring all of their vehicles. So all the drivers in the family are each bringing a vehicle out. They're bringing their boats. They're bringing their little, their little snow cone huts. Their trailers with all of their stuff on it. So the traffic press was just huge, even in that rural area. It's probably such a nightmare in a city that the last place you want to be is in that alley where everybody is evacuating along that official route. So what we did, and this is a Texas atlas. This has detailed topographic maps on it too, and lots of references. So it also has city maps in it for the large cities, and it has maps showing up close, so you can see all these little roads that are available, all the little county roads and such, that can be really handy. What we did was we got up to Gonzales, and it had taken us more than 3 hours for something that was normally about a 30-minute drive between Victoria and Gonzales. And when we got there, Paul said, "This is crazy," and he cut back over. And he was familiar with the area, so he cut back and went down a county road, a little farm road, and swung back around and took us back west. And so we ended up actually, instead of everybody was going the same direction, everybody was moving towards Austin, or towards those nicer, more pleasant areas, instead of heading off out towards the desert. So what we did is we cut across the traffic, and we went south, and then we cut back west, and were able to actually avoid the traffic there. And then once we got out far enough west, we could cut back north again, and we didn't have any traffic problems at all. Now out that area, after about 3 or 4 days, there were some issues with gasoline supplies, because of course all the gas supplies were being redirected into those evacuation areas to resupply them, so the folks in the rest of the state weren't getting their refills as often as they normally would have. So we went ahead and gassed up at every station that we passed, to be sure that we had plenty of gas. But that was kind of the wisest thing that my husband did, was to make that decision that we're not going to spend 10 hours burning our fuel to go 150 miles. We're going to do something a little bit different. And so instead of going to where we had planned to go originally, up to Austin, we went out to West Texas and went and visited friends and family out that area. So these maps, there's just no taking for them, for these big maps that show you. And of course, if you're not, Texas is a big state, so a Texas map will work for us because we can go all kinds of places. But these littler states, you may need to cross over into another state. So if you've got something like this that covers all the states and has all those detailed little roads on it, and it can be an old map. That's the other thing. Yeah, there's new highways and things, but you want to know about those little smaller back roads that a lot of people are not going to be taking. I have one of these basic little road maps here. This one's from Oklahoma. I got this from the tourist department in Oklahoma, but it's not very good. It doesn't have county roads, many county roads on it. It has mostly the state highways. There's a few, but not too many of the back roads. So this one is not really the best kind of a map. It's better than none, but it's not really the best kind. Now, the Peaceful Prepper does have a new video up that's map applications that you can use offline, so you can actually download them into your phone and they'll be available to you. So you want to take a look at that too, at least as while you've got power. That one would be helpful. The other thing is a list of phone numbers and addresses. If your phone can't reach the tower or it doesn't have power, you're not going to be able to access your family's telephones and addresses to contact them, or to ask somebody else to contact them for you. So just a little piece of paper with all those phone numbers and addresses written down on it, tucked into your wallet or into your bag, is a pretty important thing to have that you might not think about otherwise. And while I'm talking about that, we're so used to now not having to remember numbers, but I can remember one of the first telephone numbers that I ever memorized. As soon as we learned to talk, they taught us our telephone numbers. And so it's still a wise thing to teach your little bitty children your phone numbers and addresses and names, and just drill that into their heads and ask them every time they turn around, so that becomes a part of their long-term memory and they won't ever forget it. And that way, in case of some terrible event, if they should get separated, it's in there. And you know, because I can still tell you that CR63241 or CA38504 were my grandparents' phone numbers, and I learned those 56 years ago, and they haven't had those numbers in many years, but that's part of my long-term memory now. The next thing is you know, just prepare to either shelter in place or to evacuate, because you're not going to know until the actual time comes what you're going to have to do. I know I heard that some of the folks that tried to get out of Houston during that evacuation finally had to give up and find a way to get off of the highway and to head back home. So you know, that's like what we did. Be prepared, and this is the most critical thing of all, to be prepared to trust yourself and your own companions and make your own decisions on what's wisest for you to do at that time. There's not going to be people around that are going to be able to advise you well. Certainly, you know, there's going to be the official routes and all of that kind of thing, but realistically, you're on your own for 36 hours to 48 hours after any kind of an event. And so the way that you normally live and make good, wise decisions for yourself and your family, those skills are just going to be cranked up a notch, but you're still going to use those same methods to make your decisions in these situations as well. Truthfully, you know, our skills and our knowledge are the best kind of preparation that we can have. And so there are so many reasons that we might need to evacuate. And so even if you're not a prepper, or even if your family laughs at you for that, they do understand fire drills, and they do understand that, yes, if you live on the coast somewhere, you are going to have hurricane evacuations. If you live in an area that has wildfires, you're going to face wildfire evacuations at some point. And so there are, we have all these lockdowns that keep happening. That seems to be the latest thing for our law enforcement to do, is to lock down, you know, 3 miles of area because they're searching for one person. So there are going to be lots of reasons in ordinary everyday life that we might have to leave our homes for at least for several days. And that intense effort of leaving that first time and getting into that safe place, even if it's a temporary safe place, that's going to be the same whether it's a long-term evacuation or a short-term one. We're still going to face those same things. So do your research. Go over to the Peaceful Preppers channel. Look at this video. Go through her checklist, and do some homework on things that have actually happened. Take a look at the Houston evacuation, and not news reports and not Wikipedia, because those things don't cover the details of what happened. But try to find blogs or accounts from real people that went through that and the kinds of issues that they faced, and learn from that. You know, learn that, you know, so many people died because of carbon monoxide poisoning because they were using charcoal inside their homes. Or they were running a generator inside their apartment instead of having the generator set outside with the cords coming in the house. So you need to learn about things like that now, and she will get you off to a really good start. All right, thanks a bunch, and take care. I hope you've enjoyed it, and hope you'll go visit her. All right, bye.